Hello everyone. So I've got another camera setup today, which this one was suggested to me by a friend while I was working on my other one. It's a 2D camera. You can actually set it so it's top down, to the side, whatever angle you want really. So right now it's actually at negative 75 degrees in the pitch. This just gives it sort of this angled feel like the more 2D Zelda games or something like a real-time strategy. And yeah, so as you can see, there's just side-to-side movement. I accidentally triggered the other part for this, which is it has a what I call target of interest system, which every time, like there's a collision sphere around the character right now, and when it collides with something with the tag target of interest, it tries to calculate so that it will encompass that object in the screen as well. And it will actually maintain all of its clamps and whatnot. So right now you can see there's the vertical clamp, horizontal. So basically how much the player can move before the camera is forced to keep track of them versus how far they can move before the camera just sort of slowly moves their position, which you can see I've got some dead space here. I can move there and it will slowly catch up. But then once I go up to here, assuming I don't hit that object, it would be dragged along by the character. So that all is fully kept right now. It's basically trying to find the position between all, like the average position between all of these objects. So for these three right now, it would probably be somewhere around here. And so that's where the pivot is trying to be, but because it ends up getting clamped, it actually ends up being more about here, while the character ends up dragged to the side. So it's just a nice little thing. It keeps the player still focused while adjusting it for the cinematic effects. I'll go ahead and open it up just to show off some of the features for it. So here are all the variables for it. A few of them are more made visible just for tracking sake, like the offset versus the ideal offset. This is what it actually is. This is what it wants to be most of the time. Here's the distance clamps and distance clamps per axis, the speed limitation on it, the speed per axis, speed adjustments, which are if the distance between the pivot and the player falls within this range, it uses this multiplier on the speed limiter. So you can see here, this is what creates that little dead zone effect. The interpolation speed, this is just like how quickly it will move to find its position when panning out for a target of interest. Here's the array for targets. And here's an effect for controlling how it zooms out. So it finds out what is where does the distance from the player to their ideal pivot point fall within the overall radius. So let's say the detection radius is 300. Reliably, the middle point for the ideal pivot, what's the maximum anyways, would be 150 in whatever, like the overall size would be that. So that comes out to 0.5 when you normalize it, and that's what this controls. So here is what the distance range is. So right now it's okay, it's within half of it to 0.45, so 45%. Here's how much it zooms out beyond that. Right now the zoom is just decided based on taking the exact distance from the player to their ideal pivot and zooming out by that amount. This just continues to modify it so you can zoom out a bit more if they're further away, or you can set it so it like starts off small, gradually ramps up, and then gradually ramps down. And it just allows for all these little controls for it, makes it a bit more dynamic for a designer to play with. And yeah, and then here's detection radius, which that just will set the sphere's radius for detection. That's pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, so this entire thing took about a day to knock out. Still some improvements could be made to it, but it's looking pretty good. Alright, thank you for your time. Cheers.